Okay, with that, let's open our meeting at 7:04. Do we have any minutes to review? Have any been published?
I don't believe so. I think that, and Leah was gonna try to get them out if she could, but she had some other extenuating circumstances, so they're not available at this time, as far as I know.
Mhm. Okay, so then, well, I don't think review draft objectives and action items, so, Dominique.
Mr. Chairman, I will turn this over to Gabe, so at the last meeting, there was, a lot of discussion about the housing strategies, and some of them didn't really feel like they were consistent with the Rutland's development patterns and development goals. So we've gone through, and Gabe's made an effort to both find alternative strategies. We've consulted our partners at Mass Housing Partnership and looked at a bunch of resources. So Gabe, I will have you screen share and walk the committee through the changes to the housing.
One sec. All right, can everyone see that?
Yeah, if you could be a little bit bigger, wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I can zoom in, no problem. How's that?
It didn't get any, oh, okay, yeah.
Might be a little lag.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of these you've seen before. Just to go over it real quick, the ones in yellow are ones we discussed at a prior meeting. The green ones are ones that I pulled from, in part, from our discussions with, some people, just to get some advice on what the approach. Additionally, from a housing production plan that we worked on. So, the first one that I want to go over is just so we mentioned upzone, like looking into upzoning. So I wanted to kind of clarify what we'd be talking about with that, and if people want to like take a different approach, or this is supposed to be just kind of bare bones, but kind of what that could entail. So I think if we're looking about bringing more housing into Rutland, I think obviously looking into kind of reducing the requirements to actually build housing could be an approach. So just to clarify, I'm just bringing up reducing minimum lot sizes, maybe increasing the height limitations in the residential districts. Right now it's 2.5 stories, maybe bring that up to 3, but while maintaining sort of the single family approach, and maybe reducing the dimensional requirements for duplexes and other sort of small scale multifamily housing approaches. Additionally, so moving on to some sort of new stuff, something that was brought up in our meeting with Mass Housing Partnership was maybe establishing specific agricultural zoning in areas for preservation purposes, to kind of, if there's areas where we want to prevent housing or, kind of retool the zoning for those areas, considering Rutland wants to maintain the agricultural character, maybe consider that. I don't, this is just kind of a draft, so I don't know what the limitations would be on that, but
yeah, I was just going to say, I'm wondering if you can even do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a bad idea, but
right. And I think the approach that I've discussed with the AgCom of kind of bringing landowners into the process, into the conservation discussion, I think that's kind of along the same lines and maybe more less antagonistic.
Mm-hmm.
So then another new one, and I know I worked on this with Dave, but I believe working on the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. Did we work on that, Dave, or was that in a different?
Yeah, we sought some early assistance from the CMRPC in terms of putting together a work product that was a model bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
After that, the bylaw subcommittee of the planning board further worked on it and refined it to meet the town's specific needs. That bylaw passed at last spring town meeting.
Okay,
last fall town meeting, rather.
So do you think we should kind of, because we can, if you guys just passed an ADU, it might not make sense to suggest, unless there's like more changes you think could be made.
I think what we have now is a good document. We haven't used it yet. No one has come forward looking for a special permit for an ADU. So maybe we should see how it plays out in terms of actual practice before making any other suggested changes to it.
We could say consider revisiting, you know, the new, like, you know, revisit the new ADU bylaw in a few years, because maybe there's issues we haven't predicted.
I guess if we're gonna if we're gonna do that, I guess, what do you mean by more flexible housing options for seniors and renters?
Oh, just kind of to reduce, maybe consider reducing the requirements for ADUs if there's an appetite for that, but we don't have to, like, it's just, you know, I'm just thinking in terms of, you know, we've talked about kind of opening up more housing options to seniors. ADUs are obviously a pretty classic approach to keep, you know, seniors in you know, housing with their families.
Well, is the suggestion here to make it by right for certain categories as opposed to a special permit situation?
I mean, that could be the approach. I was thinking more, I mean, I forgot exactly what the content of the bylaw is, but we could consider, you know, like, just like lessening the requirements that are there in terms of like how they look and that sort of thing. But I mean, I can cut it if, I mean, you did just pass one, so I just might be good to keep it in the master.
I mean, if the rest of the board, if the master plan steering committee itself wants to discuss it, feel free.
I'll
You
pull
know,
up.
staff, this was recently passed. It's a rather flexible bylaw to begin with. It's not overly restrictive as far as we can tell. It's meant to cater to all kinds of various housing situations. So I don't know.
Okay.
Norm, through the chair,
Yeah.
this is my opinion. What we went through town meeting to get that passed, I think we should cut this out of the master plan because we've got one in place and what we went through to get it there. I really don't want to leave the thought process open that, well, maybe we should go in and modify the one that we have.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thoughts.
Yeah, you know, the other thing I'm thinking of is, you know, this master plan is looking up to 10 years down the road. And, you know, for us to do something immediately with it, no.
Mm-hmm.
But once we do see, you know, how it seems to be acting, I don't know if you want to put anything in there about, you know, in the future. In other words, you know, not immediately, but, you know, within 5 years or after 5 years, something on that idea.
What if you changed it to consider modifying the existing accessory dwelling unit bylaw for future options? Because I don't like that for seniors and renters because it's opening up a can of worms in my mind. I could even, if you left everything but the for seniors and renters, I'd be okay with it. That's my opinion.
Okay. I mean, I can just the approach that I would take is just like in several. I would just clarify, like, we're talking in several years, to like revisit it. I'm not, you know, just. But I understand what you're coming from. Dominique?
One thing I might suggest would just be that I think would maybe solve the issue would just be, you know, assess effectiveness, assess the effectiveness of that.
Mm-hmm.
The option for seniors and renters part, and that way, you know.
So, like, in several years, assess the of existing.
Oh, that's good.
I think that's an excellent idea
Yeah.
because it was recently passed, and now let's see if it actually does what it's supposed to. That's great.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of what I was thinking anyway, but it comes up all the time in towns. You know, ADUs are a pretty common thing for towns to encounter. So, all right.
Norm and Gabe, can I go back? And I apologize, I've missed some meetings.
It's okay.
That first bullet with the upzone, with duplexes and smaller lot sizes,
Yeah.
is that really wanted in Rutland? Because, I mean, we're fighting over anything, you know, cell towers that are 140 feet. I mean,
Right.
do we really want anything above 2 stories and a duplex like Worcester?
I mean, duplexes are a pretty common option. If you look at the lot sizes in Rutland, especially in the R40 and R60 districts, I mean, you're talking like an acre is like a pretty large chunk for a single family home. And if you're looking at like developing walkability, I mean, it certainly, you know, if we're trying to find housing options that aren't McMansions and, you know, that are affordable, I mean, you're looking at smaller housing options.
Well, that's my fear, is the Shrewsbury model, where the thought process is make minimum lot size, put in 3,000 square foot house.
I mean, you're also talking, you can also have, I mean, so you have the minimum lot size. On top of that, you can look at the actual size of the structure. You can look at setbacks. I mean, there's all sorts of other factors that play into this.
Okay.
The idea is
Gabe, I just want to get a feeling from the rest of the board, because I'm more of a, who's our neighbors? To the west of us, that have like a minimum lot size of 1.5 acres.
Yeah.
I'm having a brain death right now.
You're thinking of Ocam, Tim?
Thanks. Yeah, Ocam, where they decided that I don't care if you build a 1,500 square foot house, you got to have 1.5 acres. So they don't have the subdivision sprawl, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Right.
And
no, yeah, and like we're kind of, you can take this like to any different part of Rutland. This is kind of, I think in this group we were kind of talking about looking at, you know, like Four Corners, downtown, or, you know, like the town center area.
Okay.
And like, we're not talking about blanket, like you can build on a 1/4 acre in like the middle of, you know, in the middle of R60. The idea is kind of to phase all this, but, you know, there might be lots in R40 that are not conforming with the underlying zoning. You might have lots that are smaller than the acre requirement that people are fine with, you know?
Okay, good enough. Again, to Norm's point, this is the 5 or 10 year plan, so that's fine. I just want to get a feeling, because I'm not a big proponent, since we've got the open space and we give the builders the ability to reduce lot sizes, to give them another option to reduce it even more.
Yeah. No, I get that. That's definitely understandable. I mean, I think for me at least, like I was kind of picturing this, we're talking about these areas where we want to bring commercial development anyway. Like if we're looking at the zoning, we could make new zoning districts, make new overlay districts. You know, there's a lot of flexibility on the town end. It doesn't have to be, you know, just the existing zoning districts.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah.
Dave, thanks for your explanation. I'm good.
Yeah, no, it's kind of tricky, but if you look at the zoning map, I mean, there are big swaths of R40 and R60 where, like, it's just R40 and R60, and, you know, if we're talking about areas that are within those or right next to it, you know, it might make sense to revisit, like, what the underlying zoning looks like. It's to be in line with, like, what the development goals are.
Okay, good enough. Thanks.
Just to pick up on this a little bit, this is a minor thing.
Yeah.
The town doesn't allow duplexes. It does allow 2 families.
Hmm.
And there's a difference between a 2-family and a duplex, I believe.
Okay.
We're not talking about a unit on its own separate lot, separated by a party wall. We're talking about a 2-family on one lot, where the dwelling itself is on a common lot.
Hmm.
So Dave, we basically call it what, multifamily? We don't use the word duplex?
A duplex, as far as I understand it, means that each dwelling is on its own separate lot, separated by a party wall with a 0 lot line where the party wall connects. Where a 2-family is just on, 2-family has a common lot that's shared, but the units themselves are separate.
Oh, okay.
You may want to change duplex to 2-family and other small-scale multifamily housing.
Yeah, agree.
It's a small matter, but.
No, yeah. Thanks for the clarification. I haven't even thought of that.
But that's how it's defined in our zoning bylaws, correct?
2 families are defined, but multifamily is the general definition.
Mhm.
Okay.
And like in my experience, generally multifamily is anything that's like 3 and above. Most jurisdictions kind of once it gets above that, it's kind of all. So that could be like a triple decker up to an apartment, depending. I mean, but some places like get more granular, especially like below 10 units. But there's a lot of different terminology that can be used for that stuff. All right. And again, we can always revisit these. And nothing in here is like we're not necessarily talking about doing this in every part of town. So yeah, the next one, which is something that I worked a little bit on the housing production plan in Boylston, and I think it's something that might be kind of attractive in parts of Rutland, is exploring what's called a cottage housing bylaw. And it's sort of like an open space bylaw, but it kind of has focuses on you're looking at smaller lots with like a pedestrian oriented layout so that you're making like a more walkable development. It's just another option, just so that kind of trying to steer developers maybe away from sort of like the big spread out lots in the subdivision, into something that has maybe more community and is more walkable within the development.
Norm, I know where this would fit well. What's that little area over by something pond where they've got the little cottage housing?
Oh, yeah. Cool Sandy Beach.
Cool Sandy Beach. This bylaw has its name written all over it.
Yeah, and I mean, if we wanted, could is Cool Sandy Beach where like there are all those like houses by the lake, or
Yeah, they're I mean literally
they're like shotgun
over
shacks.
there for some charity work, and it is it's tight.
Yeah.
Definitely tight.
So I mean, we could even consider like if we want to focus on that part of town. I mean, we're talking about a master plan. I have heard that come up before. It is kind of an unusual deviation from the norm of housing development in town. I mean, we could talk about some sort of district for that area to kind of guide future development. I think that could make sense.
I think that's a great idea.
So I'll what's it called? Sandy Beach?
Cool Sandy Beach.
Cool Sandy Beach.
Okay. So that could be. I mean that's good to know, and it's. I remember in other projects I've brought it up, but I hadn't really touched on it, so that's a good idea.
Norm, would another place this might fit over at Finn Park, because things are so tight over there? Is Finn Park another place that this might work well with?
I don't know. I've never really fully explored Finn Park. I don't think it's that big.
Okay.
So yeah, hey, I suppose it could be put in. So,
I'm just thinking of places that were built before zoning bylaws were really put into effect.
Yeah.
Right. And to clarify, this would be more like looking at if someone was to bring a subdivision. It's like an alternate sort of layout and approach for the subdivision instead of sort of the like big spread out houses, having something a little more compact, and then with like a larger open space requirement, so that you're kind of have a little neighborhood with like more open space or like in the area.
Yeah, I'm just kind of a little bit curious on this, because now, since we adopted our open space subdivision bylaw, we haven't had a traditional subdivision submission. Okay. And the one thing about our bylaw in that respect is that the open space is required to be put under a conservation restriction, which basically means it's open space and it can't really be used for anything but at most passive recreation. And I'm just wondering if something like this could provide for something a little bit different, where the open areas could be for more active purposes, even possibly small business uses, to create a neighborhood with some services.
Right.
I don't know, am I barking totally up the wrong tree here or what?
No, you could have like a little. I hate to use the word strip mall, but like a 3-shop, like marketplace, a little pharmacy, a laundromat. There you go. Three components that would be great for a small community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can look into what other towns have done with this and bring you back some examples. There's some great like renderings that I've found. I can bring that to you next time. Well, I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad this is something I was a little enthusiastic about when I first heard about it, and then when I revisited it this time. So I'm glad to see people are wanting to talk about this. So then the last one in this first goal is basically just preparing design guidelines for new multifamily housing developments, and basically to encourage. I mean, I don't think you can actually necessarily enforce them, but kind of to encourage the existing housing stock to be used as a reference point. So if new housing development comes in, kind of have, what's existing, just to tell developers what's existing in Rutland, what the community might want to see. Now, whether they follow that kind of depends on how this is implemented, but I think having having some sort of process to develop design guidelines, I think could be useful.
Well, with the multi-family housing and all that stuff, it's all going to be dependent upon, what's the word I'm looking for, the market.
Mm-hmm.
Because if a builder can come in and build a single-family house and make $600,000 on it, and build a multi-family and have to deal with a $300,000 or $400,000 house that he's got to get 2 people to live in, I'm going to guess which way our builders are going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's not bad to have it in the arsenal, but
yeah.
Me personally, right now in this market, I don't see multifamily in Rutland. That's my opinion. I don't know what the rest of the committee thinks, but I just don't see it.
I mean, I think we were talking about this today. I mean, I think it's accurate. You haven't seen a ton come in the town center, despite the zoning in the town center. I think you're probably in the short term right. I mean, who knows where it'll go, but.
Gabe, what would multifamily be? How many units?
I'd have to consult the zoning, but Dave might know better than me. But there is allowances for like some mixed use and multifamily in the town center. Correct?
Yeah, so like, for example, in the TC zones, there's a density bonus for dwellings. It's proportional to the lot size. So it's not a fixed amount, it's based upon the lot size itself. That's currently how it works.
So yeah, just like the bigger the lot, the more more density you can add. So that, I mean, like I said, that could be like a multifamily technically is like could be from a duplex up to it could be like some sort of more major development.
Mitch, a good example is down on Main Street, or is it Maple Ave? Jimmy Susie's wife's real estate. I think there's 4 or 5. I call them buildings or apartments or townhomes in there. That's what I keep thinking is multifamily, where you could have 4 and 5 on that little area, right across from RDIC. You know what I'm talking about?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Jim Susie's little.
I have the idea. Yeah, Susie built it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy built that, and one of the if you want to call it house or apartments or whatever is for his wife's real estate company. But I think there's 4 or 5 other ones in there that can be rented out.
Okay, so those are apartments. That's what I was thinking, more on like Blair's center of town, retail and apartments above it. So that's what I was thinking as apartments. I'm doing actually 3 apartment buildings right now that range from 33 units to 188. So that's why I asked the question.
Mhm.
Apartment buildings, 10 units, 20 units, I don't know. I get it, it's all predicated on the amount of land and density. But yeah, I think that's, right now, apartments, maybe not in Rutland, but apartments in other towns are big right now.
Yeah, and again, I don't think there's much currently existing in terms of available lots, and that would actually facilitate that right now. But I mean, I think design guidelines could be a good idea, but like people have mentioned, I don't know how effective they'd be. It's just something I put in. But do we want to keep them on? I mean, we can cut them. It's just an idea.
Actually, I just want to jump in on this idea. So not the multifamily part, but the guidelines, a design guideline. Now, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Now, I know that this master plan is to think about things 5-10 years from now, but I don't get the sense that this is a community that is really super into design. Like, for example, some towns will have a design advisory committee. That committee will look at large-scale commercial projects or large-scale residential developments and look at it for design, aesthetics, and regulate for aesthetics, colors, materials, etc. Some areas have historic districts. Some areas have historical commissions. This town doesn't have a historical district, doesn't have a historical commission, and it doesn't have a design advisory committee. Looking at a prior attempt to change the zoning probably 20 years ago, there was a section for a design advisory group, and that was not advanced into the public domain. So I would Norm knows better than I do on this, probably having been involved with those efforts. So design guidelines, if it's aspirational, something to maybe consider as the town evolves and changes and new people come in from the outside with different sensibilities, and maybe otherwise right now, I don't know.
Okay.
Norm, I
Just real
think
quick.
that if you left the first sentence in, I'd be okay with it, but the rest of it, I agree with Dave. It's never going to happen.
Yeah. Just a couple of quickies. Number one, we do have a historical commission.
No, that's not what
Not in the sense of what we're thinking here.
what I'm talking about in particular is an historical commission, which has a demolition delay,
Yeah.
where they can mandate modifications to structures that are demolished for aesthetics. That's not part of what this historical commission has authority for.
No.
Yeah, like Lexington and Belmont, Dave, have those authorities.
Yeah.
The only other thing is, to me, when you start getting into aesthetics on these things, that can be rough ground to fit on.
I agree.
We did include some restrictions in the town center districts in that zoning, but they're pretty minimal.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of one of these things where I don't think Rutland is a place that's going to go and say, oh yeah, you're going to put up two houses, they can't be the same color side by side.
Yeah.
That isn't going to fly out here.
Yeah. And
Maybe if we change that from prepare to update design guidelines and standards for new multi-family housing developments and leave it at that. Because we've already got guidelines and standards within our
there's like dimensional requirements and that sort of thing.
Well, that's why I said instead of prepare, why don't we just use the word update? Because we've already got them, so.
Okay, we can just make it update the standards, or I can just make it update requirements for new multifamily housing developments.
I haven't been in town long enough, but are these guidelines what drove the center of town, Dunkin' Donuts, to look the way that it does? I know there's something with the house that was torn down. It's a Greek revival, and that's why the Dunkin's is shaped the way that it is. That's what I think.
Not really. I know there was some back and forth, but I think Dunkin' Donuts just kind of agreed to build it the way they did.
Okay.
It wasn't by a requirement.
It might have been I wonder if it was like a condition of purchasing the property or something.
I don't think so.
Okay, we'll see what the next Dunkin' Donuts looks like.
Yeah.
I want them to put the one back near me.
All right. Well, I'll change this to like update requirements, and then we can move on. I mean, I kind of put this in just as an idea. I know some places are really big on design, but from what I've gathered,
Gabe, I just don't think Rutland has the horsepower to do the rest of this paragraph. I just don't think it's going to happen.
No, I agree. It was just an idea.
No, it's a good one because, as Dave said, it's done other places in the Commonwealth. I know for a fact Belmont and Lexington have it because I've got friends that live there, and I've heard the stories.
Yeah. I was kind of just pulling anything out of like this housing production plan that seemed moderately viable. So moving on to the other new items. Yeah, so I just pulled some more ideas to kind of look at when we're talking about sort of the affordable housing stuff. Honestly, like thinking about it, I think changing,
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we just go back? Can we just work through these in order, please?
Oh yeah. Well,
unless the group wants to take them out of order,
I was just looking at the new ones. I mean, a lot of these we've discussed already. So I was the green ones are ones that I kind of have reintroduced. So if you want to move on to goal 2, I can do that as well.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So, looking into constructing senior housing units, research the utility of CPA funds, create an inventory of town-owned land suitable for new housing development, which, based on my conversations, I've heard some other towns are, this is actually like a pretty popular thing to do in towns. And then advocate for a higher inclusion of accessible units and proposed affordable housing developments.
Okay.
So that was, but again, like, sorry for skipping it. We've discussed some of these a few times. So then goal 3, pursue policies and partnerships that will support the development of truly affordable housing. So then construct and retain affordable housing units to support Rutland's future population growth and align with state affordable housing goals. Implementing a housing production plan, I think that's a really strong idea and could kind of give the town flexibility and more time to work on this in the future. Maintain Stoudex as a housing choice community. I mean, I think it's obviously important. It gives you a lot of benefits. And then again, research the utility of Community Preservation Act funds. That's repeated from the senior housing. The ones highlighted in red are ones that I seem to be rejected from the last meeting. So I'm going to skip them unless anyone wants to revisit them. But I can cut them after tonight. I just wanted to have them at least in the materials, which is just like looking at, there's like a couple partnerships with developers and landlords, and then some sort of closing cost assistance program. But again, I don't think at the scope of Rutland that's necessarily feasible.
No, in terms of these items, I think some of the ones in red, they may get struck now, but they may show up as recommendations of a housing production plan. Yeah,
I agree. I think some of these are a little too prescriptive for the master plan. And then we mentioned modifying the town zoning bylaw to mandate residential developments set aside a minimum of X% of total number of dwelling units as affordable for very low income, or moderate income residents. We can kind of get down, I mean, I can come back with like a specific percentage in mind, but I can even just make it some percentage.
Gabe, how do you do that? You do it within the subdivision bylaws? I mean, because you can't do it with A&R. There's no way you can pull that off with A&R. So it's got to be in the subdivisions.
I believe it would be in the subdivision, and basically you would my understanding is you would be doing some sort of deed restriction on those units that were constructed.
Norm, haven't we tried that and it just hasn't worked?
Well, we tried it, but we didn't know what we were doing.
Okay, good with that.
Okay, you know, that's number one. So it's, you know, the process, which I don't know. There's a state law chapter on affordable housing, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. There's a couple.
Hmm?
There's a few.
Yeah, and
Doesn't the USDA support that too? With loans?
it could be. I don't know.
There's a lot of affordable. I mean, there's like too many affordable housing programs to go over tonight.
Okay.
It's just that we would need a major education on the process on something like that. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, I think this is something that would probably be best. It can be mentioned in the master plan as like something for a housing production plan to look into. But I think for the master plan process, it might, again, like I think you want a more in-depth process, like Norm said, you want a more in-depth process to move something like this along.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, do you think we should soften this a little bit then?
Yeah, I can change it just so it's like, you know, as part of a housing production plan, consider modifying the town zoning bylaw to mandate.
I'd get rid of the word mandate. I really would. That's been kicked around in this country for the last 2 years and isn't taken well.
I mean, yeah.
Right now.
I can say like to implement well, you'd call it like inclusionary zoning. So zoning require residential development set aside a minimum of some percentage of total number of dwelling units as affordable housing.
I think that's good.
Yeah. I think you're right about the mandate vocabulary.
This is part of the you know, like subdivision bylaw updates that we'd be doing as we move through in the future.
Exactly. And I think doing it as part of a housing production plan makes sense because that's like, you know, its own process like this where you're meeting regularly and just talking about housing. So it make, you know, and you have community input, and I think it would go over better. I can even put it so that it's like indented below the housing production plan. So I pulled a few new ones. So we have actively seek out and apply for funding and technical assistance to implement Rutland's housing goals. I think that's kind of straightforward, but you know, it's a little obvious, but I think it's in line with what we've been discussing. Develop a municipal affordable housing trust fund to have readily accessible funds available to respond efficiently to housing opportunities as needed. I think if we're talking about implementing anything involving, you know, senior housing or affordable housing, I think this is an important tool to have access to, and it can be incorporated into like that would be sort of, you could put CPA funds into the affordable housing trust fund, I believe.
How do you, Gabe, and again, this is a learning experience for me. How do you do that? Because I know on the planning board, we've tried to say, you know, for every house you build in this subdivision, we'd like to set up a $50 account or a $150 account to offset any costs, you know, for the subdivision. I'm struggling with how to set a trust fund up. Where do you get the funding from, I guess, is what I'm looking at.
I think the main source, I mean, the town can put the money in. I think the town can make a contribution.
That's never going to happen.
Well, but that's an approach. The other, what I said earlier, I think the other main way that would be like one of the sources, one of the avenues for CPA money.
Okay.
Could be I believe it could be into an affordable housing trust fund.
Okay.
So, like, those funds are pretty flexible. And it, like, my understanding is the main uses towns have for them is either for sort of building preservation efforts and then affordable housing development, because not every town has buildings they need to preserve.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just to jump in on this and further what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So Tim, without going too far afield of what we're trying to talk about here, the Affordable Housing Trust, we would have to adopt a state statute first that would then unlock the ability to create a housing trust. The housing trust would have the ability to buy properties, or it would have various responsibilities, including purchasing properties and administering these funds. So there's a multiple steps involved with this, but if there was also CPA funding, that entity could use the CPA funds to secure housing, or to buy housing and put restrictive covenants on the housing. So there's things that could happen.
Yeah, because the state had that about 10 or 15 years ago, where they were giving money to the towns if the town would match a percentage of it for property purchasing and stuff like that. I know Rutland didn't take advantage of it at the time, but it was out there, and that program hasn't happened in a while. But I see what you're saying. I like it. I think it's a great idea.
And even with I believe with the CPA funds too, I mean, there's my understanding is there's a pool of funds if Rutland adopts it that they would get access to, because the town or the state also matches those CPA dollars to a degree. So as part of the incentive to adopt CPA. So you are kind of opening up a lot of options with that. All right, and then explore adoption of a workforce housing special tax assessment area in which developers can be offered a property tax incentive to build housing affordable to low and middle income residents, which I actually don't know much about, but I mean, if there's interest in that, I can do some more research and get you more details on that. And then kind of similarly to the down payment closing cost program, so I maybe shouldn't even have included this, but this is something that's come out of housing production plans, is explore the creation of a buy down program whereby the town uses funds to buy down market homes, deed restrict them as affordable in perpetuity, and sell them to income qualified first time home buyers at below market prices. I think that would be something that an affordable housing trust fund would help facilitate. But those are just a couple more options to explore.
Dave, and Norm, that last one, I just don't think in the size of Rutland that'll ever happen. That would have to create a whole department and people involved in it, and I just don't think we right now have the staff. I couldn't even imagine in 10 years having the staff to do that. So that's my thoughts.
I have to kind of agree there, because that would create almost its own bureaucracy type thing. It wouldn't be, that is not something that will be managed by one person, and particularly not by anyone who is presently employed by the town.
Right.
It would just be a huge
undertaking.
And
I don't think that fits us, is my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So I'll cut that. And then I'll also cut these other red ones from earlier. And then the last goal, just like the same thing with basically developing safer streets around, the areas we've identified for development. And then on top of that, some sort of study to determine potential changes to the traffic pattern in town center and other neighborhoods, if there's any large scale improvements that need to be made to improve safety and traffic flow.
Move Dunkin' Donuts.
Move Dunkin' Donuts and get rid of the dog leg of Route 56.
So that's it for this. I can put the edited version in the Dropbox, and if anyone wants to have any more comments on that, feel free to shoot me an email. But I think we should move on to the other sections.
So I don't think there were any other changes to the sections, were there, Gabe?
Nothing that wasn't discussed at the last meeting.
Okay, so unless the committee has an appetite to reopen some of it this evening, I think that there was nothing new to present on the other sections. The next step, there are a couple of next steps on our side. So now we can really start working with the town planner, with Dave and other, staffers, just to workshop these and make sure we're not missing any municipal departmental priorities and strategic thinking that's, somehow skipped us. So we will, start doing those subject matter expert calls with, different experts at the local level, other experts at the local level, and also start putting pen to paper. So I think that, as we start and move further into the narrative development process, I think what might be prudent would be to identify who would be our reviewers for each of the chapters. So if we could divide the group up into 3 sections, some people who will, review our outline and also review the draft chapter for population housing, a few others who will be our committee liaison for the land use, and a few others who will review the economic development. That way nobody has to review multiple drafts of multiple chapters until we're closer to the end. That would be my suggestion.
Any thoughts, Dave?
I think what you're hearing here is professional practice amongst the planning community. When you have an organization like the CMRPC who's organizing this, that, with the master plan steering committee comes responsibilities to help guide policy. And now that we're nearing the end of that chunk of work, now the next logical step would be to have the chapters start to come together and have people take a look and review. So this sounds reasonable.
Through the chair, it is not necessary to identify who would be the reviewers tonight if you want to give it some thought, but we are, as Dave said, approaching that process. So on our side, there's a lot of work that's required for putting pen to paper, but we're getting there soon.
If anyone's passionate about a section, feel free to volunteer so we can start, filling those slots.
Dave, can you organize that?
I mean, I can put this as a follow-up item and circulate it to the committee as a whole, indicating what we're trying to accomplish, and attach a date to this. Dominic, when would you like to have this done as an action item?
Let's 2 weeks.
All right. So you want people to be lined up within 2 weeks?
You know what? There's not necessarily that. 2 weeks is not necessary. Let's have people lined up for the next meeting.
All right, fine. That's great. So I'll just circulate this as an email reminder to the group, asking what we're trying to accomplish here, and see if people would volunteer on these items. I know that we have a couple of members who are not here tonight. I'm not exactly sure of their status, whether they're still interested in participating or not, but we'll try to see where that stands as well.
Excellent.
Okay. Next item. Review phase 2 survey and promotional materials.
Mr. Chairman, I can take this one if you'd like. Let me start screen sharing. So as everybody will recall, the phase 2 additional chapters were funded, and the next step for that is, bear with me a second, I can't seem to speak and screen share at the same time. The next step will be conducting a survey. Our suggestion is that any remaining chapters, whether they're funded or not at this point, just do the surveying so we don't expend the political capital on outreach, and survey. Let's just finish it up. So that is what we've developed, is a survey that'll touch on all of the other chapters and that remain less. Open space and recreation / natural resources, because that is being undertaken by another committee, so it's not necessary to survey that at this time. All right, let me pull it up. survey. For whatever reason, I need just another second, Gabe, unless Gabe, you have it pulled up.
I do not have it pulled up, sorry.
It seems I've closed out of it, so give me just another second. I'm so sorry.
People excited for the snow this weekend?
Yeah, Gabe, I've got a snow shovel. You can come over to 149 Palmagussit and help me.
Oh, see, I already called dibs.
Hey, I'll even give you a Simplicity snowblower to even see if that's working.
Oh, wow.
Okay. All right, here we go. So sorry about that. All right. Just make it a little bit larger. Okay. So this will be for phase 2 and 3. This will be the final survey, community survey seeking public input on standard topics. Maybe not the last time you get public input, but the last time we do it this way to inform goal development and chapter development. So we have, have a cover page. The only thing I will mention is that we need to remove this mention. We talk about, we list all of the chapters that a master plan covers, and then we talk about this next phase. This phase, again, does not actually need to include natural resources and open space and recreation, because that would naturally be surveyed through the course of developing your open space and recreation plan, which has been underway by a town committee. So that will be removed. Otherwise, we go into, the survey delves into transportation, town services and facilities, and cultural and historic resources.
Dominic, before you go any further, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Back up there where you had the list of topics, we really want to put schools in there, because that is the most controversial subject in Rutland. And since, is there questions about schools in the survey?
Okay, so there are some questions about schools. So the intention of the master plan is not to do a deep dive into the school system, but to consider it as a component of municipal facilities and services, recognizing that schools have their separate budget. So that's why I've kind of called it out, because some people might say, well, that's not municipal. So, but we can, it's actually not a standard part of, it's not a part of the standard naming conventions in a master plan, and it's not a separate chapter.
I just don't want it to, or maybe you can help me out, stir the pot and cause, I don't know what the words I'm looking for. I don't want a hot topic to take away from good information that we can get from the public, I guess what I'm trying to say.
If the rest of the committee is comfortable with that, I see no reason to call it out. That was an edit we made to another town who's in this process, and they had asked us to call it out on theirs, and I thought their cover letter was useful. So we can absolutely remove that. Let's take a look.
What's the committee? I want to make sure the committee's okay with that. Is what I want to do it.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, because there were quite a number of questions in the survey about schools, and I don't know. I guess my question would be, what can this master plan address regarding schools?
So what we might have seen in other previous master planning efforts would be a consideration of whether the school building stock is sufficient given population projections, or if there, things of that nature. So I've never seen it be a particularly deep dive. But as we look at all of the town-owned buildings and town-funded buildings, in terms of whether they provide for current and future populations, or whether they're, anticipated needs, that's how that fits in.
Well, Dominic, the only reason I bring it up is since we're in a regional school agreement, it's a little bit different than from a town that has its own school system. So that's the only reason I want to bring it up. And again, I am not an expert on regional school agreements. Please don't take it that way. But I know Rutland's in a unique situation with the other 5 towns with this regional school agreement, and I don't know how that affects the elementary and the middle schools in Rutland.
Okay, I'm just going to suggest let's, as we go down through this survey, we're going to do it item by item.
We can do that. Let's skip to the section that has relevant school questions.
Okay, and let's take a look at what those questions are before we make a decision on any of that.
Okay. Okay. Let me just check one thing. I don't remember if they also included a breakout section on schools or if they completely consolidated it under town services and facilities, which is what we used to do. Okay, so there are separate school questions. Although that there's, okay, so schools are slightly mentioned in municipal services and facilities in that we've asked how often, let's take it from the top. Municipal facilities and services question. How often do you or your household use the following services and facilities? So we ask the frequency, and we include the schools in this question, along with other facilities such as a library, recreational facilities, parks and open space, town hall, things like that. So that is where this is addressed.
That's a common question. I'm okay with that.
Okay. We'll continue on with this section then. How satisfied are you with the following town services? And again, gauging satisfaction on a scale of, very satisfied to I do not use this service. Here we just really ask about the town website, town events, online services, Rutland Fire Department, and Rutland Police Department. It seems a little abbreviated to me, and I'm not sure if maybe this was requested. We did. I can't recall whether or not we received edits and feedback from a few weeks ago when we sent this out to the committee. But that looks a little abbreviated to me. So if there's something else we think should be on here, then we can include that. Moving on for now, how satisfied are you with the following town facilities? So this is services. It's supposed to be services versus facilities. Sorry, go ahead.
That Dominic, this is all vanilla. It's nothing at all. It's all surface stuff. So I don't see this as big stir the pot questions at all by any means.
So we can let us. So we'll keep on going at a precursory level. So what municipal services or facilities do you feel the town does not currently provide? We move on to the next question, asking about familiarity with different boards and committees. Where do you get your water? Where do you get your sewer? How satisfied are you? Let's continue on. And then we go into the school section, which has been specifically called out, although historically we have not done that in our older master planning efforts. So did the quality of the school district and local schools factor into your decision to live in Rutland?
That's a good question.
Do you currently have children enrolled in Rutland or Wachusett at regional schools? If you have children who live within 1.5 miles of their elementary school, do they walk, bike, bus, drop-off routes are not applicable? So this,
We need another dot there. Affected by cell towers. I'm sorry, I'm being a smart aleck.
If you don't have children who live within 1.5 miles of their elementary school and who do live within 1.5 miles of the elementary school and do not walk or bike to school, why not? So really trying to get to safe routes to school and what's limiting.
These are good questions. These are very good questions.
Okay. How important do you think the following elementary school programs are? And then we talk, academic, athletic, blah, 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 language, whatever. We ask the same question for middle school, and then we ask the same thing for high school, but include vocational programs rather.
Yep.
And then
oh boy, here comes the nuclear device. Hit the button and launch the nukes. 37 is going to be a, I almost want to leave it in there to see what you get for answers.
What does the committee feel? Do you think that this is going to torpedo this planning process in an non-productive way? Do you think that this is an important question to ask? What do you think here?
Norm, my opinion is I like 38 so people can give their opinion, but I would really get rid of 37. It's such a polar topic in this town.
I'm not sure how useful it is either.
What's up?
I'm not sure how useful it is either.
Yeah, I agree, Kate, because I mean, I'm going to speak for myself. Unfortunately, I don't have any little ones, so I'm all about town services. So, I don't know. I think, Dominic, it'll cause you more headaches in this survey with this one question than it'll serve to help you.
I will say one thing is, we're not asking if the funding of other services is appropriate. So I didn't write this question. I think that this might have been added to the potential question pool, as part of another planning process, and it makes sense. But we're not asking about is fire funding appropriate. We're not asking about anything.
Yeah, but they roll in this town, and again, this is my 20 years here, and fortunately, my wife being on the FICOM, they always go hand in hand.
Okay.
Because the school has a large funding appropriation, and because of that, the town services get cut. So it's always been I hate to use the word a he against she type of argument. So that's why I really don't want this 37 to take away from the quality of this survey. And that's my only concern. I think this is a great survey so far in the schools that you've done. I just don't want one topic to polarize it. So, that's my opinion.
I don't think you're really going to get much of anything in the way of good information out of it to use. The thing is, school funding, we're 1 out of 5 towns. We don't control it.
Yeah.
I don't think you can even, come to, I don't know how you would even come to a statement in this master plan that would address school funding.
I very much agree with everything that's been said so far. Does anybody on the committee either disagree or have a dissenting opinion on this, or a different opinion? Because I think we should strike it.
I agree.
Excellent, easily done. So those are the questions about the schools. You've seen, in very brief, you've seen the questions about the municipal services and facilities. We can take it back to the top now, unless you have any feedback on those in brief. The other section we want to talk about is transportation and circulation. So this is everything that moves through town and how they move about it: people, bikes, pedestrians, cars, right? So we want to talk about road conditions. How would you rate the overall road conditions in town? Good, adequate, poor. How do you travel to work? Drive along. Sorry, do we have a comment?
Under that number 2.
Sure.
Transit commuter rail. We
got to strike that.
We don't even have anything even remotely close. I don't know. I think you'd have to go into something like Westboro, to reach any commuter. Well, not Westboro. I guess you could Worcester.
Yeah, there might be people who drive into. There are probably people who drive into Worcester occasionally to commute on the rail. I don't know.
Would it be something that we can change instead of a radio button having checked multiple ones?
I think so. Yeah, we could definitely do that, actually. That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I like that change. That makes sense.
Yeah, that way we can capture if there is someone going on the commuter rail from Worcester to Boston.
Okay, excellent. We can do that. How many miles do you, also walk, bicycle, telecommute, I do not work, or retired or other? Question 3, how many miles do you travel to get to work one way? I do not work all the way to 30 plus miles.
Good.
What type of transportation options should Rutland explore? Check all that apply. sidewalks and crosswalks to enhance pedestrian mobility, enhance WRTA bus service, dedicated bike lanes, taxi, Uber, Lyft, park and ride, carpool lots. Rutland does not need any alternatives or other. Please specify.
I guess I'll ask the committee. I don't think the park and ride carpool lots, based on what we have, I mean, we don't even have enough space for parking for town events. I don't think that's something that'll ever, what's the word I'm looking for, ever be a possibility in Rutland. Am I wrong? Somebody jump in and tell me I'm wrong.
Oh, because I feel like you could put a park and ride lot somewhere on the outskirts of town that doesn't necessarily need pedestrian access.
It's a good point, Kate. Good point.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would agree. It doesn't have to be in the center of town.
Moving on then, if we may, question 5, how do you use rideshare apps like Uber or Lyft? Frequently, or sorry, how often do you use them? Frequently, sometimes never, would consider if more available. Question 6, would you use public transit if it were available in Rutland? Yes, no, unsure, no opinion. Question 7, open-ended, suggested locations for additional bicycle infrastructure. Question 8, how important is it to provide additional bicycle infrastructure such as bikes? I think this question 7 should come after question 8. Excuse me for not catching that. So question 8, how important is it to provide additional bicycle infrastructure, bike lane shoulders, signs throughout Rutland? Very important, very important all the way to not important at all, and suggested locations. So rather, we can eliminate question 7 because it is duplicated here in question 8 by asking for specifics. Please rate your support for the extension of sidewalks in Rutland. Strongly support all the way to strongly suppose, with an opportunity to specify. Suggested locations for extensions of sidewalks in Rutland. If you bike locally in Rutland, where do you bike? To around town center, on recreational trails, to or from work. I do not bike locally or other. How safe do you feel riding your bicycle in the following areas of Rutland? Town center, recreational trails, Four Corners, North Rutland, Rutland Plaza, residential.
Change to that, Dominic. It's RUTLAND.
Did I spell it wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, I see it. Excellent. Right in the main question. Okay, got it.
Should we add, if people don't ride their bike, an option to not have it required?
That's a good point.
I was also thinking, how safe would you feel riding your bike?
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good approach. Keep it open.
Well, are we trying to capture who actually rides their bike or who would ride their bike? Or both?
I mean, it's kind of just like with cycling, a lot of the barrier is a feeling of, like, a lot of people don't because they don't feel safe.
Not on 56, I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't.
Don't feel safe driving on 56 right now.
So
Norm, that's a checkbox and a positive for you.
the perception, even if you don't engage in the activity, I think is sometimes even more important because it can be a big barrier of entry.
Okay,
So
that
we'll
makes
change that
sense.
to a hypothetical and look at a way to include an option for people who don't. Actually, I don't know that you need that if you include the hypothetical. Would you agree? How safe would you feel?
I agree.
Yeah, I think just change the would.
Okay, excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Please specify whether any of the following needs to be addressed regarding pedestrian facilities in Rutland. For example, sidewalks, crosswalks. Check all that apply. So sidewalk conditions, gaps in sidewalks, ADA accessible ramps or sidewalk width, sidewalk materials, crosswalk striping, walk signal length for visibility or other. And then again, open-ended suggested locations for pedestrian facility improvements. And then question 15, what transportation issues would you consider to be most important in Rutland? So this ranking priority, non-priority, or not applicable. So, conditions of roads, bridges, congestion, rising gas prices, new vehicle technologies, access to transportation for aging populations, air quality, or speeding.
But
Sure. Oh, did you say good question?
no, I said those are all good questions, Dominic. I think those are great questions, and I think you'll get a lot of good feedback from those questions.
Excellent. Question 16, open-ended. What are the most difficult areas or intersections you encounter in Rutland on a regular basis?
Okay, Norm, it's your shot, baby.
Yeah, we can predict that without even that question.
Okay, so those are the transportation questions. And then we have one more section included in the survey. So this is cultural and historic resources. So this is a big one, but it encapsulates a lot of what we wanted to get out of this survey for this section. So do you agree, feel neutral, disagree with each of the following statements about Rutland's historic assets? So agree, neutral, or disagree. I'm familiar with Rutland's culture and historic assets as just historic buildings, districts, cemeteries, and other heritage resources. When I have visitors, I take them to visit historic places in my community. Historic resources are an essential part of Rutland's character. Historic character should be protected when new development takes place or when historic buildings are renovated. Historic resources deserve financial support from the town's government, for example, tax incentives, Community Preservation Act funds. Or historic resources should be paid for by property owners alone without help from the town's government. Local regulations should protect certain historic resources, for example, local historic district. Ensure there are adequate cultural opportunities for Rutland residents of all ages and abilities. And the town should set aside funding for annual maintenance for historic town-owned properties, buildings, and public places. So again, agree, neutral, disagree on any of those, all of them, rather.
I'll be very interested to see the results on that.
Yeah, I think you'll get some good feedback, Dominic, out of that. I really
Okay.
think you'll get a good information.
Excellent. And then, let's see. 18, the Community Preservation Act is a state law that allows towns to create a dedicated fund to build and rehabilitate parks, playgrounds, recreational fields, protect open space, support local affordable housing development, and preserve historic buildings and resources. This fund is generated through a small surcharge on local property taxes and matching funds from the statewide Community Preservation Trust Fund. Would you support the adoption of the Community Preservation Act in Rutland? So again, strongly support all the way to strongly oppose, as well as don't know.
That'll be a good information from how, as soon as you use the word taxes,
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
no doubt.
So that is the scope of the survey.
Great, I think this is good. I like it.
I
Excellent.
like it.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to take any sort of actions in terms of, releasing the survey tonight, pending any small corrections we might have taken notes on and jotted down?
When do we go door to door and hand these out?
Well, I've got some flyers already prepared for your review as well. So as soon as the committee approves and decides to release it.
Let's put it this way, I'll accept the motion to release the survey.
So move.
Do I have a
I
second?
second that.
Oh,
I have a motion and a second. And since we are remote, we have to do a roll call vote. I hope I catch everybody here. So let's start out. Tim,
Aye.
Melissa,
aye.
Mitch,
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Have I missed anybody?
Kate.
Kate.
Aye.
And Norm, aye. Any opposed? You got it.
Through the chair, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It's not listed separately on the agenda, I don't think, but would you like to take 1 or 2 minutes and look at the promotional materials for the survey?
Okay. Anybody have any other highly competing activities? Let's do it.
Okay. Bear with me 1 more second. Seems I closed out so many of my tabs. Okay, here we go. this one you will see is very, very similar. It's based on I think this is similar to the copy that was released last time for hanging in windows, etc. But of course it says phase 2. Now, what you know is that it's phase 2 and 3, but I don't think anybody else will make that distinction. It's the final phase of your survey, right? So we've got the QR code just like last time. We've listed what chapters are included and have got the link on there. Again, this is 8.5 by 11, can be put in, business windows, etc. Any comments on it? Any thoughts?
Dave, how do we get Ron to get this on our website? And I'm going to even be aggressive, and even on the front, on the board out front of the town hall, the digital board. I think this is important enough that it deserves that.
Right. So, as in the prior go around, I have the ability to get this to the website. Working through internal ways that we do it, and also to get it to the sign as well.
Okay.
So that's pretty easily accomplished.
I think the sign will be I think
we
it'll
used
be
the sign last time. Sorry to interrupt. We used the sign last time as well. That was pretty easy to get to.
Okay, good.
Is it worth it, since we did talk about how schools kind of brought in a slew of people, to add that as part of the description of phase 2? If nothing, it might just entice people to fill it out.
Makes
So
sense.
listen, how do we get it into, how do we advertise it in a school? Because again, I don't know their process.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm anticipating the question, and I can tell you that on the prior go around, we have a good relationship with the principals of the schools in town. So it's a simple ask. We ask if they can distribute the survey to their groups, and we haven't had any issues up to this point. That's how we actually boosted up the numbers last time. If you recall, we had, some outcome, and then we went with a second round of solicitation. We got it to the schools, and that bumped up the numbers significantly. So that's not an issue either for this time.
So could we change that to phase 2 focuses on town services, schools and facilities, maybe?
Absolutely. We could change that if the committee would like. No problem. So we can do that across all 3 flyers that are developed. This is the social media version that we will put on Facebook. I already have approval to do a boosted promotional ad for that. And then we have one more for print, if you would like, little ones to hand out, I think similar to what you did last time. Let me pull that up real quick. And just in black and white, if you have any town meetings or anything would like, would like to print these out, you get 2 per page, and they can be chopped in half. They're not very expensive to print out at Kinko's or whatever. And that's in the budget. So to do a limited printing for that. So we'll make that change here too. Everybody with these?
Norm and Dave, you think a good place to put these little handouts would, maybe the library?
Library, town hall.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any even local businesses are interested in, putting them out on the counter.
Yeah. Especially on the like Anita's desk, and right there where people walk up. Put it in a little plastic handheld, the plastic bins, so they could grab them and take it with them.
Yeah.
Once again, all the stuff that you're mentioning is the effort that we engaged in last time, so we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Dave, do you know if there's a way on the town website to put it as like a banner so that whatever page you're on, it says, have you filled out your town survey across the top, to kind of be a bit obnoxious, even if for a couple weeks or something?
I'm not sure about that. I think that banner is reserved for more, like a storm, a blizzard or something. I think we can get it to the front page. We can have it periodically listed on the front page. So as you know, you go to the front page of the town's website, there's 4 or 5 items usually there. We can
I'm thinking if you don't access whatever you're accessing via the front page, you would miss it. But
well, we can link it to the planning department site, the homepage. I mean, a banner that travels throughout all the websites. I can look into it, but I think that's for exceptional situations.
That's fair.
But it's worth looking into in case it's possible, so.
So, Mr. Chairman, what we will do is we will get this up on the master plan website and the Facebook page, and we'll ask everybody to share and promote it to your networks. You did a great job last time, had a tremendous response. So what you did works. So push it, to the extent possible, and then we'll work with Dave on getting these materials over to you so you can do what you do.
And Norman and Dominic, the only thing that, and this has been my little, maybe because I'm an old generation, when we get the results, instead of big letters and little subjects, any chance we could do pie charts in Excel? Because I'm old school. I like to see percentages of how things come in. Like the last time we had big letters of things that were important. That just, I don't know. It just,
Okay, so yes. However, what I will tell you is this. So what you saw last time was automatically prepared by a platform. And I would much rather put that effort into your final product than into an interim deliverable. So,
okay.
Why don't we share what comes out automatically like we did last time from the SurveyMonkey platform, and we'll be prepared to dig into it. And if any of it's not, easy to interpret, we can go back. But I just would hate to, waste the time on formatting the interim stuff rather than the final.
I guess I just was asking if SurveyMonkey can put it into 1990 pie charts or bar graphs or something, because again, and maybe it's because I'm not as visual as I should be, and I've got a left brain instead of a right brain. I just can't distinguish what is actually what's the word I'm looking for? The most
You're talking
important.
about the word cloud?
Yeah, that word cloud, Kay. That thing just.
You don't like those? Okay.
Yeah, I hate those with a passion. They don't help me with anything.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll err on, steer away from word clouds and work on the charts and graphs aspect of SurveyMonkey. No problem at all. And
I don't want to be the entire speaking. What's the rest of the committee think about those word clouds?
Yeah. I think they're useless.
I can go either way, so pie charts work as well.
Okay, that's it. Then I guess our next item is next meeting date, which.
So the board is back to its usual schedule, which would be the fourth Wednesday of each month.
So that would be the 23rd of February.
Yep.
Good with me.
So
That's school vacation week. Not that I don't know whether it'll matter. I just don't know what the planning committee it has for me for that week in terms of if we're going to be gone or something. So I don't really know.
Right.
So right now it's good until my wife tells me it's not good.
Or Brian, do you find out you're going to put Mickey Mouse ears on and you're out of here?
That's October. So
okay. Do we want to do it a week before just to stay out of that zone?
I don't think it should make a huge difference. Let's stick with our schedule.
I put it in my calendar either way, but
yeah.
And if I find out that something's going on, I'll tell Dave ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there any other business to come before the committee? No, hearing silence. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Okay. And you know something? I can't picture that anybody is gonna be opposed. I'm not gonna do a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.